Hi folks, this is video number 57 and the title is The 12-Mile Pursuit. The 12-Mile Pursuit. I received a phone call from my radio man. He got a call from a neighboring farmer asking him to get in touch with me about someone just shooting a deer using a spotlight on his farm. I went to school with all these folks, and if there was a game problem, they always called me, even though I was in Wyoming County. I get over to the farm, and the farmer pointed out where the deer was on his pasture side hill. I could make it out from the road using a spotlight. My radio man arrived, as he was also a constable for the township, and a neighboring township constable also showed up. I appreciated the backup, but it was too much in one place. I requested that they disperse and stay out of sight. I parked out of the way and walked up to the deer, which was about 100 yards off the road. As I got into position, I saw that everyone else congregated at the barn and were standing around in their headlights. I was in position for only about 15 minutes when another vehicle came out the road. It stopped right in line with my position and about 400 or 500 yards from the barn. Past experience told that new vehicle stopped on the road was the shooter and driver. They unfortunately could also see the group milling around at the barn. The car was stopped for a couple of minutes and then proceeded slowly past the barn and on out the road and was gone. I grabbed the deer and dragged it down to the road and walked up to the barn. I asked the fellows if they noticed the car that just went by. Then I told them that it was the shooter. I gave the farmer a permit to keep the deer, and I started heading for home. As soon as I got in my nice new Ram Charger, my boss called on the radio. He wanted to know my location, as he had just crossed into Lackawanna County and had no idea where he was. He had only been in Wyoming County for a few weeks. As it turned out, they were pursuing a black pickup truck with yellow clearance lights and coming in my direction. We had received a few reports of a truck of that description possibly being involved in night shooting in the Nicholson area. My boss and another deputy came across them on a dirt road northwest of Lake Sheridan. They actually stopped the truck at the first encounter. The driver jumped out and saw who it was and jumped back in and took off. They were in pursuit from the backside of Lake Sheridan to Earl Clark Road, then at the intersection of 107 made a double left and traveled the length of Holly Road to Baylor's Lake Road. They made a right on Baylor's Lake Road and traveled out to 407 where they made a right. Traveling on 407 for a few hundred yards, they turned left onto Ameza Road. Ameza crosses Marshbrook Road just below my dad's place. When I heard Ameza Road, I replied that they were headed right at me and I would set up a roadblock at the top of Roselle's Hill. I was about 1.5 miles ahead of them. Ameza was and still is a dirt road. I set up across the road with lights out, waiting until I saw them coming so it would be too late to avoid stopping, or so I thought. As I came into sight about a quarter mile below me, I turned on my headlights, four-ways, and red strobe. They didn't stop. There were some small white pines along the road in front of my truck. They whipped around me and took out those trees. My boss was right behind them. I jumped in my Ram Charger and started after them. This was a dry dirt road, lots of dust. Going down the backside of the hill, you come to an intersection with Hack Road, which is also dirt. As I started down the hill, I couldn't see a thing except the telephone pole I missed by about a foot. Wow, that was close. I got situated in line and we were still in pursuit of that black truck for a few minutes. My boss asked if I knew where we were. I told him I hadn't been back in that area for 20 years, but I was sure we'd come out someplace I would know. My boss came on the radio saying, "They just threw a gun out the passenger window." I tried to mentally mark the spot, but it was tough. Nothing that stood out as a reference. It was just steady trees and scrub along the road. Eventually we came to a paved road. Holy cow! We're at Finch Hill! Now having good bearings, I called Dallas on the radio and requested Matt, the division radio operator, to clear the net and to call the Lackawanna Comm Center to contact the Scott Township Police for backup, and I would relay our position through him. We made a right and headed towards Heart Lake. At Heart Lake intersection, we made another right heading towards Tompkinsville. I asked my boss if he wanted me to pass them both and force a stop. He declined that idea. I continued to play radio tag through Dallas. When we got to the Tompkinsville local bar, we made a left. About 100 feet down that road, the black truck finally pulled off. My boss pulled diagonally in front of them, and I did the same in the back. I notified Dallas of our position. About that time, the Scott Township Police pulled up. I exited my truck with 12 gauge in hand. I had the passenger side covered. The passenger jumped out, and I covered down on him, instructing him to put his hands up where I could see them. He raised his hands, and I instructed him to come around the back of the truck, place both hands on the tailgate, and step back, legs spread. My boss was doing the same with the driver, but to the front of the truck. We weren't sure if we had deer shooters or bank robbers. For some reason, they thought it funny until they got cuffed and put in a police vehicle. My boss went to the police station in Montdale, and I backtracked to the road where the rifle was thrown out. I found the road and spent 3 hours with a spotlight trying to find that rifle. Since there were no reference points and the speed we were traveling, I had a window of at least a half a mile to search. I never did find that gun. The black truck guys had enough problems with what was coming to them. Having stopped initially, then taking off, came under resisting, and then there was failure to stop ×2. My boss retraced the route the next day for his reports. That's how I know it was 12 miles. The black truck boys turned out to be father and son. At their arbiter hearing in Harrisburg, they tried to say they thought it was their fireman buddies fooling around. I guess they forgot about stopping and getting out the first time. The son told that I ran the barrel of my shotgun down his back. The arbiter told him after reading my part of the report that he wouldn't blame me at all. Of course, I didn't do that. I stayed back, giving plenty of room so he couldn't turn and grab the shotgun. In case you are wondering about the arbiter hearing, that happened when you contested your loss of license. I'm not up on the current law recodification. That option may no longer exist. I know that they lost theirs for at least 3 years. It may have been 5, but it was about 30 years ago, so my memory on that part is a bit fuzzy. One thing I didn't mention, as we were putting the culprits in the police car, the brown station wagon pulled up. It was my dad and stepmom. They were listening on the scanner and saw my boss's red light as he passed through the intersection below the house. Just checking on me. Well, that concludes the story of our 12-mile pursuit. All the best, everyone.